Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special program to commemorate the 32nd anniversary of the liberation of the state of Kuwait from the Iraqi invasion. On this special program, I will be joined in the studio by a retired Army general who was part of the forces that liberated the state of Kuwait, and we will also have special greetings from the several foreign ambassadors in Kuwait as we celebrate the National and the Liberation Days. So stick around, it's going to be fun. Before we go any further in this program, let us take a look at some of the special greetings from their excellencies, foreign ambassadors in the state of Kuwait on the occasion of the national holidays.
Since the dawn of independence, the state of Kuwait has been moving rapidly towards renaissance and comprehensive development to build the Kuwaiti citizen and achieve prosperity under the wise leadership of the Honorable Al-Sabah family, the rulers of Kuwait.
I would like to convey my heartfelt congratulations to the state of Kuwait, His Highness Emir Nawaf Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, His Highness Crown Prince Mishal Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, on the 32nd anniversary of the liberation of Kuwait. Through Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm, the United States led a coalition of 35 countries that brought an end to the Gulf War and liberated Kuwait. When President George H.W. Bush learned of the invasion of Kuwait on August 2, 1990, he quickly denounced Iraq's aggression as unacceptable and added that the unjustified invasion would not stand. Today, the United States remembers and honors Kuwaitis, Americans, and members of the coalition forces who fought side by side to liberate the state of Kuwait, which remains to this day an indispensable American ally.
Assisted by an international coalition of countries in which Germany participated strongly, the aggression was repelled. Kuwait was reborn after that, literally from the ashes. After that, Kuwait continued to work on its reputation as a peaceful country striving for peace, cooperation, and prosperity. This is where we mostly meet in the United Nations and other organizations, Germany and Kuwait, working together side by side, siding with the needy, the helpless, the less fortunate, aiding where possible. Very often, Kuwait rushed to the need of the helpless, at the helm of countless humanitarian initiatives. For that, we are, indeed, the international community are extremely grateful.
Today, we are fortunate to join all Kuwaitis in celebrating Kuwait National and Liberation Day. We extend our deepest gratitude for the continued partnership between Kuwait and the United States.
As we recognize and honor the determination of Kuwaiti Armed Forces and all Kuwaitis, we join in celebrating freedom and continue to look towards a bright future together.
Happy National and Liberation Day, Kuwait. Assalamu alaikum.
The 1991 military campaign for the liberation of Kuwait was a fight for what is right, with a clear message that is, you can't invade another sovereign country without facing the consequences. For France and Kuwait, it was the trigger for a more robust defense relationship. As a matter of fact, the French-Kuwaiti Defense Cooperation Agreement was signed in August 1992 in the aftermath of the liberation of Kuwait. كل عام والكويت بخير وتعيش الصداقة الكويتية الفرنسية.
The love of a nation is the strength of belonging, characterized by the faith of citizens. The admiration of the state of Kuwait is a feeling steeped in our hearts, born deep within our inherited customs and traditions. In the festive month of February, we all participate in these special social activities with pride, glory, and with positive change. in our communities, and in our hearts.
Kuwait is also celebrating the 62nd anniversary of its independence, and the national holidays in Kuwait are always welcome with a joyous and celebratory atmosphere at many venues across the state of Kuwait. And I'm also delighted to say, and we have our correspondent live at various locations to tell us about the festive atmosphere in the state of Kuwait. First of all, we have our correspondent Maryam Al-Dwayhi at Jabir Al-Ahmed Cultural Center. Good evening, and could you tell us about the celebration at your location?
Yes, Ahmed, as the celebrations comes to an end today at 26th of February, where we are blessed to have Kuwait liberated from invasion, and also blessed to have friends from all over the country. Today, the celebrations were extremely going smoothly and very joyful. Also, as you see, there are many children here. I'm joined by Hur and Safa. Their parents brought them here to Jabal Ahmed Cultural Center to enjoy the festivities by the National Guard. But last but not least, I would like to send a special thank you to our cameramen from the news team, also the news team behind the cameras who are watching me now.
To form a multinational coalition to work with the United Nations Security Council to help liberate the state of Kuwait. The coalition forces began mobilizing the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in response to the invasion. On the same day of the invasion, the United Nations Security Council unanimously denounced the invasion and demanded Iraq's immediate withdrawal from Kuwait. On August the 6th, the Security Council imposed a worldwide ban on the trade with Iraq. The multinational forces, including 38 other countries from around the world, including Argentina, Australia, Bahrain, Kuwait, Morocco, Netherlands, New Zealand, Qatar, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the United Kingdom, and the United Arab Emirates. We have this report, and come back, stay with us.
On January 17, 1991, U.S. and coalition forces began an air campaign to protect the Arabian Peninsula and secure Kuwait's sovereignty. Within 24 hours, coalition forces controlled the airspace over Kuwait. Hours after the air campaign began, former United States President George H.W. Bush gave a speech describing the U.S.-led coalition's efforts to liberate Kuwait. In that speech, he said, "The legitimate government of Kuwait will be restored to its rightful place, and Kuwait will once again be free." UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher also had a significant role in building the strong international consensus over the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. In August 1990, Prime Minister Thatcher and her cabinet began discussions on the deployment of British troops to Kuwait in order to create a barrier for any further Iraqi aggression. The clear support of the United Nations Security Council and the fact that Iraq had clearly violated international agreements helped to convince many MPs to support the military operation.
And respect for human rights find a home among all nations. The Gulf War put this new world to its first test. And my fellow Americans, we passed that test for the sake of our principles, for the sake of the Kuwaiti people. We stood our ground because the world would not look the other way. Ambassador El Saba, tonight, Kuwait is free. Forever. We are very happy about that.
Now, we'd like to welcome our special guest in the studio, retired Major General Mohammed Al-Sirri. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure is mine.
Before we start and say anything, before we go further about the liberation and also the National Day, could you tell us the pre-invasion situation in the state of Kuwait? What was it?
It was all okay till about July 15, where the foreign Arab foreign ministers meeting in Tunis. The Iraqi regime foreign minister Tariq Aziz stood up and blamed Kuwait and UAE of stealing Iraqi oil, or in other words, that we are overproducing, driving the prices low. And this should not go without punishment or so. Of course, this rang a bell, but the following day, around 16 July, the late President Saddam Hussein, went on public and directly blamed Kuwait and UAE about the same thing, stealing the and he said, and I say it in Arabic, قطع الأرزاق أو قطع العناق ولا قطع الأرزاق. That means war. At that very moment, around 16 July, Kuwait Armed Forces readiness raised. You know, in military we do defense conditions. One is maximum. So we went straight to condition one. That means for the non-military viewers, at defense condition one, you would ask for everybody to be available.
You mean this is the reaction for the state of Kuwait military situation?
Sure.
Right after the statement they gave?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we're ready from 16 July. That means all the military forces, all the people on training, stop training, all the ammunition is issued, all the supplies, all the maintenance efforts were expedited, and we were very ready. We stayed that much ready for about 1 week, 10 days.
1 week?
About 1 week. I can't remember exact date, it is around 1 week.
After the threats that we were
Exactly.
receiving
So
from
we were
the
the highest
Iraqi
readiness.
regime.
We were the highest readiness.
Okay.
And that period, Kuwait received message from 5 heads of states, Arabic. Mr. Mubarak, the Palestinians, Jordan, Sudan, I think Yemen, or Tunis, saying they have visited with Saddam Hussein, and he said, yes, he's massing forces around the border, but he has no intention of invading Kuwait. And this only to put the pressure on the Kuwait government to cancel all the debts of the Iraqi. And they asked Kuwait government, those 5 heads of states, not to provoke Iraq. And we should stand down a little. Basically, what the message we got, don't start the very war you're trying to prevent. Rightly or wrongly, we received this message, and our defense condition decreased. They start allowing vacations or times off. We started reconducting training and normal maintenance procedures. All the way till July 31st.
Last day of July.
Exactly.
1990.
Exactly. And that was important day where the late Sheikh Saad was meeting in Jeddah with the
Saudi government.
No, with the Iraqi deputy minister.
Deputy minister for Tariq Aziz.
لا,
that's his deputy.
Duri. Yeah.
Izzat al-Duri.
Izzat Ibrahim.
Correct.
And that meeting finished, I think, just after sunset. And Duri said to Sheikh Saad, okay, it's finished now.
That was the vice president for Saddam Hussein.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they said, now we can all go back to our countries, and next meeting, inshallah, in Baghdad.
In Baghdad. To reconcile the whole situation.
Now,
but they had other
to complete the lie. To complete
they had other intention for Kuwait.
Exactly. Just to complete the lie. And once that happened, they will start building up again. This lasted till just before midnight of 2nd or to 3rd August, 1st to 2nd August, just before midnight, they start skirmishing with the border posts around 11.
With the
something.
Kuwaiti border?
Yes,
Okay.
Iraq has started, not really full attack, but skirmishing. Now, after that, we started going back to the post, our post, Army, Navy, Air Force, and by 3 in the morning, it was full-borne attack. Full attack. Land force, Air Force, and Naval.
Naval.
For us in the Air Force, with the call for prayer of the 2nd of August, it was summer, so it was early around 3 something, the first engagement of Kuwait Air Force. There was a full attack by Iraqi attack helicopters with commandos, and they were met by the Mirage force of Kuwait Air Force over Jahra area, or Mutla area, and continued fighting all the way to the evening of 2nd August, where we could not handle it anymore.
The situation was overwhelmed.
Very much so. When you are facing 23 divisions he put 4 of them in the initial phase, where the skies were full of airplanes, literally full. We managed in this very short time to bring down 39 Iraqi airplanes. Some of them by air-to-air fights, and some of them from air defense, ground-to-air. But by the evening, we knew the battle was lost.
Now, let's take a moment and talk about our brothers in the GCC area. What was their reaction? What exactly that they kind of advised the government of State of Kuwait to do at this particular moment?
Before 2nd of August, from the beginning of the GCC, we knew the defense of Kuwait will depend, of course, on armed forces plus GCC countries. That's a policy all the way till now. We could have conducted many exercises with the GCC. They knew what we have, we know what they have, they know our capabilities. But on the 2nd of August in the evening, and from the evening till about sunrise of the 3rd of August, decision was taken is to leave Kuwait to Saudi Arabia, to redeploy all the forces to Saudi Arabia. I'm talking the Air Force, at least part of the Navy and part of the Army. Of course, was lighter, easier, being airplanes, but tanks are heavy and ships are heavy. So whatever we could do, we managed to do it. At the Air Force level, 70% of Kuwait Air Force redeployed to Saudi Arabia and the Gulf.
Now, besides the GCC countries, we had lots of friends around the world, in particular the United States and also the United Kingdom. I believe their role was vital for the whole scenario of the liberation of the state of Kuwait. Would you agree with that?
I would agree for the liberation and even before liberation, for the, preparing for the war. Now, please understand, first, we thank God 1,000 times that Saudi Arabia is our friend and Saudi Arabia is our border. We cannot thank the Saudis enough of accepting all those forces, plus civilians, many families Kuwaitis with Saudi. But I'm talking from my side. The support we have got from the Saudi government and Saudi military is priceless. At the highest level, and I could summarize late King Fahd talk, he says either Saudi exists and Kuwait exists, or no Saudi, no Kuwait. That level. And we really we cannot thank them enough. The military of Saudi Arabia and the Navy and the Army and the headquarters and the barracks and the camps and the full support of our military. And that's we have to admit it. Full support, 100%. For the coalition forces, our friends in the States and Britain and France and other sovereign countries started after that. Let's say 10 days into the occupation, about 15 days, where we start seeing Americans and Brits and French and our coalition. Then the USA started creating the coalition forces of 30 plus countries, including Arabic countries, Islamic countries, and friends. For example, Egypt was involved, Syria was involved, of course the 6 GCC countries, and whatever was available for us in Saudi was also available for us in the GCC. We had airplanes in Bahrain, in UAE, in Oman, and the Qatar, of course, played a vital role. And we started I would say, the biggest logistics operation we ever had, from 2nd of August to 17 January.
Let us talk about the cooperation between the Kuwaiti military and the coalition in general.
It is, without it, there will be maybe no liberation of Kuwait. It was complete cooperation. For example, we had Mirage airplanes, French, American Skyhawk bombers, helicopters, and trainers, and transport. As I said, we managed 70% of the Air Force into Saudi. Without the support of this, because our airplanes also, the Mirages only available in Kuwait and in Qatar. The Skyhawk not available in the Gulf. Nobody operated Skyhawk in the Gulf means no spare parts, no ammunition, no technicians. We just had airplanes. And that's where they start seeing the full cooperation of the coalition forces. They helped us re-establish our force by parts, ammunition, training. We thank Qatar very much. They took the Mirage pilots and flew there. The others very much supported by the coalition, all the way till the Liberation Day. Now, all this happened in the Saudi air bases and camps, with many thanks to them.
Mr. Nasir, stick around. I'm not done with you because we have other things to show our audience. The state of Kuwait and the world every year in February commemorate the liberation of the state of Kuwait from the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait in 1991. Following the invasion, the Arabian Gulf states scrambled to aid of Kuwait and acted from the first hour of the Iraqi move, out of the deep belief that any attack on member state of the Gulf Cooperation Council GCC is an attack on all the members. More details in the following report.
The state of Kuwait and the world every year in February commemorate the liberation of the state of Kuwait from the Iraqi invasion in 1991. Despite all the tragic details of the occupation, Kuwaiti people's resilience, steadfastness, and firm support to the leadership during this difficult time was exemplary. The Iraqi invasion of Kuwait was condemned from the first day by most of the Arab countries. The majority of Arab countries also agreed on the formation of an international military coalition to liberate Kuwait. Several Arab countries, including Saudi Arabia and Egypt, effectively contributed to the international coalition to liberate Kuwait. Arabian Gulf states scrambled to the aid of Kuwait and acted from the first hour of the Iraqi move, out of a deep belief that any attack on a member state of the Gulf Cooperation Council is an attack on all its members. The GCC states provided the springboard for the ensuing political and diplomatic efforts to counter the Iraqi aggression and remove its consequences. One day after Iraqi troops' storming of Kuwait, GCC foreign ministers convened in Cairo on the sidelines of the Arab League meetings and called for an unconditional withdrawal of all Iraqi troops from Kuwait. Arab foreign ministers met on August 3rd and 4th to discuss the Iraqi invasion. Arab leaders held an emergency summit in Cairo on August 10th and agreed on demanding military intervention to liberate Kuwait. The GCC states have played a great role in pushing the UNSC to issue a series of resolutions to ensure the restoration of Kuwait's sovereignty. On August 2nd, the UNSC passed resolution number 660 of 1990 condemning the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait and considering it a threat to the international peace and security.
The love of a nation is the strength of belonging, characterized by the faith of citizens. The admiration of the state of Kuwait is a feeling steeped in our hearts, born deep within our inherited customs and traditions. In the festive month of February, we all participate in these special social activities with pride, glory, and with positive change in our communities and in our hearts.
We are back with our special guest in our studio. Let us focus now on the United Nations and how quick they condemned the aggression by the Iraqi forces, the attack by the Iraqi regime. How did they act?
They reacted very quickly from the first day, condemning the attack, and no other state could take another attack sovereign states and say, no, it's mine or yours. Later, they stopped all the Iraqi funds outside Iraq by United Nations order. And what most important was United Nations Resolution 678, were declaring, giving a final ultimatum to Saddam: you have to withdraw from Kuwait by 15 January, or it will be a military against you under Section 7 of United Nations. And that was the most, what we have seen. The position of the United Nations and the position of the Arab League encouraged those 30 plus countries to join us in the preparation for to liberate Kuwait.
Desert Storm, the operation of Desert Storm, Asifat al-Sahra, that took place to liberate the state of Kuwait from the Iraqi aggression and the invasion of the Iraqi forces. Take us briefly, just about maybe a week or maybe 3 weeks prior to that, just briefly. How did it happen?
Okay, first let's mention it was Desert Shield.
Desert Shield.
Then Desert Storm.
Okay.
On 2nd of August, or just after that, the week after, it was called Desert Shield. It's a defensive operation against any new attack. And it must be known, what we have seen on 2nd of August, the number of forces, and then in the liberation we've seen the ammunition he left in Kuwait, and the tanks, and the forces which came to Kuwait definitely over the size of Kuwait. He have intention to continue.
What do you mean continue? To move?
To take Hafji, take all the way to UAE.
To keep going to Saudi Arabia, to the rest of the GCC.
He stopped in Kuwait. The amount of ammunition and equipment and number of soldiers and number of the political...
That he had that time.
That he had the intention of continuing.
Okay.
Please remember, in Tunis he said, Kuwait and UAE stole our money. So UAE was in his mind. He was daydreaming by saying, I will stay put on the oil resources from Kuwait all the way to UAE, including the east of Saudi Arabia. He's crazy enough to believe that the world will leave him to sit on 60% or 70% of the energy
production.
No way. So he's so stupid that he believed himself. He lied and he believed himself. Anyway, so Desert Shield, for us, for the Kuwaiti part of it, we had to, as I said, reorganize our forces. The Air Force had a few types of airplanes, mostly French and American, and was fully supported. The Land Force with their tanks and the two Kuwait Navy Sambuca and Istiqlal fighting boats. Also gathering, everybody comes outside from Kuwait. The people who couldn't join on 2nd of August left Kuwait to Saudi Arabia and joined the forces in Saudi Arabia. To complement the manpower of the army, Kuwaiti civilian recruits, and that's the nature of Kuwait. Is when Kuwait was in need, they came, regardless of Tajnid, Jbari, whatever, they came. And camps were in, at least in Egypt and in UAE, recruited Kuwait civilians to join the Kuwait Land Force. All this took shape during Desert Storm. And on 17 January, Desert Shield, I'm sorry, 17 January, Desert Storm started. So that's our preparation, difficult period.
Mr. Asiri, take a breather because I have another report. The state of Kuwait, deep-rooted relations with the United Nations, gained its fruit of labor and the period of the brutal Iraqi invasion. The United Nations did not hesitate from day one to stand by and firmly by the state of Kuwait's side in liberating it from the invasion. More details in the following report.
From the start of the aggressive Iraqi invasion to the state of Kuwait from August 1990 through February 1991, the Security Council issued 13 resolutions, the most notable of which were Resolution 661, imposing comprehensive sanctions on Iraq, and Resolution 678, demanding that Iraq withdraws from Kuwait within 45 days and threatening all necessary means in the case of non-compliance. The process of the liberation of Kuwait from the Iraqi invasion was indeed a historic and unprecedented achievement for the United Nations. It was a living example of the capability of the international community to adhere and commit to the provisions of the UN Charter, thus embodying the concept of collective security as well as the maintenance of international peace and security. In 1990, the UN proved its ability to confront the challenge that the Iraqi invasion posed to international legitimacy, as well as its ability to assert itself as a multilateral international tool capable of addressing grave violation of the UN Charter. The UN member states mobilized their political will, particularly that of the permanent members of the Security Council, thus proving that the UN is an indispensable organization capable of addressing international problems and issues that are a threat to the international peace and security. 32 years after the liberation, the state of Kuwait continues to have strong relations with the United Nations, with Kuwait supporting the various activities of the United Nations, be they in the field of maintaining international peace and security or in the development and the humanitarian fields.
We're back once again with our special guest right here in the studio, retired Major General Mohammed Al-Sirri, to talk more about the liberation of the state of Kuwait. Mr. Al-Sirri, once again, thank you so much for staying with us. You briefed us about the whole scenario before and after the invasion. Let us focus a little bit about the state of Kuwait and its road to reconstruct and rebuild the state of Kuwait after the invasion. How did it happen?
Before the invasion, before the liberation, during Desert Storm, many committees, civilian and military, I'm talking at government level or military level, started putting scenarios. What happened if we do this? What happened if we do that? What happened? And on our part, military, we started heavy training on the way we're going to join the coalition forces in fighting. For example, our two main airplanes were the American Skyhawk and the French Mirage. The Skyhawks were air-to-ground or bombers, which is suited for the role. The Mirages were normally air-to-air fighters. But then they joined the Skyhawks in east area of Saudi Arabia, and they were doing joint operation Mirage and Skyhawk. In that time also, it was very apparent the American leadership of the coalition, where American deployed about 700,000 people, not in Saudi Arabia, in KTO, Kuwait Theater of Operation, مسرح عمليات الكويتي, مو بس الكويت. And everybody was training to the operational order of the American force or the coalition force. So all the players, the Kuwaitis, the Americans, the French, the GCC countries, all of them, and the British were playing on the same note. It was very important to do this. Then the big Eid for us was 17 January, early morning, when they started, Kuwait liberation started.
You mean the aerial attack?
We were in the attack. And may I say, the very first airplane which came to Kuwait proper, to the state of Kuwait, because Americans and Brits flew all the area. But inside Kuwait, the very first airplane was Kuwaiti Air Force, piloted by then Colonel Yusuf Dwayan Al-Ataibi. He's a hero, and then he became Air Force commander, but was the very first airplane. into Kuwait. Then followed for the next
The
following
rest of the coalition.
Exactly. No, and even Kuwait Air Force, every day it was about 2 waves, morning and afternoon. Very unfortunate, we lost 1 airplane on the first day in the afternoon. Then Major Mohammed Mubarak. And that's our only losses, thank God. We fought in the invasion. We operated in Saudi for 6 weeks, 6 months training, and then on the liberation of Kuwait with the loss of only 1 airplane.
Since you have an expertise in the military, what about rebuilding the whole arsenal and the whole military in the state of Kuwait? How did it go, and how long it took to regain the power of the military in the state of Kuwait?
You said how difficult? Very difficult.
Was very difficult.
Very difficult. However, when we came to Kuwait, almost all military installations were damaged, not usable. Airports were bombed twice, once on the invasion and once on liberation, because the Iraqis were using them.
Not only that, they burnt all the oil aisles.
Yeah, of course. If you talk on the civilian side, the oil, the ministries, the hospitals, the power,
all the governmental bodies.
But when it comes to us, we had 0 ammunition, 0 command and control, no towers, no radars. We just had airplanes and pilots.
That's it.
That's about it. So just imagine for a country busy rebuilding country, and we're trying to build also the military. It took us some time.
It did.
Now, also at the very same time, we signed, the Kuwait government signed for the F-18s before invasion. And it was due very soon. And we have to be ready to receive the new airplanes. The much different airplane, much heavier, much better.
More technology.
More technology. And delegations went that time, or just before that time, to USA to finalize the mobilities of the F-18s. So we were very busy. Also, one of the biggest battle, of course, in Kuwait, the biggest battle then was the fires. 670 plus oil fires. And that's just to prove that how liars Saddam said, I want Kuwait for me. You want Kuwait, you don't burn it. You keep it clean. Saying?
You better believe it.
He burned it. For us, and also for the government, I mean other government departments, the battle of mine clearing and EOD, unexplosive ammunition. Please remember, more than 110,000 flights in desert storm in Kuwait and around Kuwait. Most of the ammunition used was CBUs, cluster bombs. Now then also, in January and February of 91, it was rainy season. That means more of the sites were mud. So ammunition would go inside the mud. It became very dangerous operation.
Unexploded.
Very much so. I can't remember, I mean, right now how many tons we have to remove. So Kuwait government wisely used the, contracted with many nations to help clear the Kuwait. The Kuwaiti EOD teams cleared Kuwait City, but the rest of the area was different. It was a very huge operation. We took many casualties. Our casualties in the mine clearing more than our casualties in liberation.
In combat.
Yeah. Also, in this operation, I must mention that Kuwait Air Force flew more than 700 flights. As small as we were, as shortages of many kind of shortages, they managed to fly around 700 plus missions to, and it's very hard feeling hearing the pilots where you are bombing your base, your air base. You are bombing your country, huh? Not very nice feeling.
No.
But you have to do it.
You have to. Mr. Asiri, a pleasure to have you here so much.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you so much for your service.
I'm sorry if I was too fast.
No,
or
no,
not
you're
too much,
doing
but
just fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We'd like to thank our great service, and still after 32 years, the state of Kuwait is grateful for your sacrifice and the invasion too. Our next report looks like at the brave role that Kuwaitis had throughout the time of the invasion in the reassistance and the liberation. This role did not only occur during the invasion, But even after the invasion, where the state of Kuwait sent a message to the world that it can be reconstructed and be stronger than before. More details in the following report.
It is difficult to find words that do justice to the Kuwaiti resistance of 1990 to 1991, the remaining untold story of a great international crisis. Men and women, youth and elderly, bravely risked their lives in an effort to thwart the occupation of Iraqi forces. The resistance had four main areas of activities: civil disobedience, which initially included public demonstrations and the boycott of most work, but then narrowed in scope to just the latter; maintaining morale through the provisions of essential services and other forms of support; preventing distractions in the oil fields; and the military operations, both attacking Iraqi troops and gathering intelligence for the Allies. The Kuwaiti resistance never had a sole chief or a central command. Indeed, it had almost no formal organization structure. Key figures emerged and the resistance became more organized and interconnected with time, but it always remained an essentially grassroots movement. The number of Iraqis killed or wounded by resistance attack probably never exceeded 1,000, but conveyed the clear message that the invaders were unwelcomed. In all, the Kuwaitis killed or wounded many more Iraqis than they lost in the resistance. More important, the military effort may have tied down some 30,000 Iraqi troops, or more than 10% of their army in Kuwait. The resistance conveyed their daily accounts of life under occupation, the atrocities and the courage of the Kuwaitis, which were critical in keeping Western public opinion focused on the issue of human rights.
As we reflect on the national celebrations in the state of Kuwait, the heads of diplomatic missions in the state of Kuwait are sharing with us the joy and the celebration of these special days. Let us take more vision and more looks on the greetings from the foreign ambassadors on the occasion of the National Day.
The love of a nation is the strength of belonging, characterized by the faith of citizens. The admiration of the state of Kuwait is a feeling steeped in our hearts, born deep within our inherited customs and traditions. In the festive month of February, we all participate in these special social activities with pride, glory, and with positive change in our communities and in our hearts.
The advancement of Kuwait is linked to its people that helped in preserving its identity to rally towards its leadership, with every Kuwaiti citizen working to protect the security and sovereignty of our nation.
We've had very strong bilateral relations with Kuwait since 1965, when bilateral ties were established. And it's wonderful that I think since that time, the relationship really has gone from strength to strength. And as you said, it was underscored by Canada's participation in efforts to liberate Kuwait in the face of occupation and invasion. And so at that time, we had almost 4,500 Canadian Forces members by air, by land, and by sea participate in that effort. They were involved in combat operations, they were involved in safeguarding maritime routes, ensuring the safety of airspace, and ensuring that also other allies, had support and cover in order to be able to successfully, stand up to occupation at that time. And it's also really interesting because it's the first time that women in the Canadian Forces were able to participate in combat operations. And as you may know, we have a strong commitment to gender equality across all fields. And so I find that particularly interesting that this was the first time, that happened in our history.
On behalf of the government and people of Australia, I'd like to take this opportunity to wish His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, and His Highness the Crown Prince, Sheikh Mishal Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, a very happy National Day and Liberation Day for 2023. And I'd like to take this opportunity to extend to all people in Kuwait Australia's best wishes for continued progress and prosperity. Australia is very proud of the role we played in liberation and of our ongoing friendship and ties with Kuwait that span education, trade and investment, and of course a shared belief in democratic values.
As the representative here in Kuwait of my country, Bulgaria, which has 60 years of diplomatic relations and friendly ties with the state of Kuwait, I'm happy and honored to extend to His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, to His Highness the Crown Prince, Sheikh Mishal Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, to the whole leadership and the people of Kuwait, warmest congratulations on Kuwait's 62nd National Day and the 32nd anniversary of the liberation.
On the occasion of the National Day of Kuwait and the anniversary of the liberation of Kuwait, on behalf of the Polish government, the Polish people, the embassy, as well as on my own behalf, I would like to extend the heartiest and deepest congratulations to His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, His Highness the Crown Prince, Sheikh Mishal Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, and people of Kuwait.
The commemoration of Kuwait's National Day, it's also a time to reflect on the progress that has been made since 1961. Let us celebrate the courage and the determination of the Kuwaiti people that will lead them to a brighter and better future. I take this opportunity to convey my heartiest greetings to the Emir, to the Crown Prince, to the government, and to the people of Kuwait.
Thanks to the wise leadership of the late Emir Sheikh Jaber Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, the late Father Emir Sheikh Saad Al Abdullah Saad Al Sabah, and with the assistance of the Kuwaiti people, Kuwait was able to gain support of the international community and to achieve liberation. The 22nd and the 26th of the February remains an important day for all Kuwaitis who annually celebrate and reflect on this day. Kuwait still remembers the pain of the invasion and the joy of the liberation 32 years later.
سلم على نواف محفوظ السلامة يا رب يسر دربه وسهل كلامه محبة الناس له طيب ما فيه وكتابي ربما يفارق أيادي شيخ حكيم وحكمته في كلامه محبة الناس